Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 18 of College Football Throwdown, a college football-centered podcast. I am your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Good evening, national college football fans.
That's right. I know we didn't do an episode last week. Our schedule kind of got thrown off on the national topic. We were just able to talk about the Husker game last week, but we're here this time to kind of recap. What is it? Week 6, I think we're at?
7. We're week 7.
We are week 7?
Yeah, we're 2 and 4.
Oh, right. Well, that's 6, though.
I know. So now week 7 that we're talking about here.
Oh, well, right. But we got to recap week 6, I'm saying, and then preview week 7.
I apologize.
Okay. That's all right. So talking about it, like we were actually just talking before the podcast, there were some good matchups this weekend, but some of the more interesting games ended up coming from like upsets or close games you wouldn't think would be close, rather than those games being super exciting. One that I was kind of interested in was Texas beating Oklahoma 24-17. Texas desperately needed something good to happen, and so that's definitely something for them to hold on to down there, even though their record still isn't very good.
Right, and they found a way to win. They played with they were flying to the football defensively. They turned a corner. I believe that's legit. After watching that game, I don't think that's a one-game hiccup or bump positive for them. I think that is a corner turn that just occurred at the University of Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of talk because we previewed this game on. Well, I guess we didn't because we didn't do a podcast last week. But we were going to, if we were, was the Michigan Northwestern game, because that was definitely the biggest game in the Big Ten that weekend. And Michigan made a big-time statement by taking a Northwestern team that people regard to be pretty good and crushing them 38-0. Obviously they got helped out by an early kickoff return for a touchdown, and so they were able to go up quickly in the first quarter. But still a dominant performance, particularly by their defense. It's like their third straight shutout, I believe.
Well, it's not the third straight one, I think, but I think it's the third shutout of the year, maybe. But yeah, their defense is very legitimate. I mean, it is playing at a very high level, and they're playing with great confidence. And it sets up, of course, this coming weekend's big matchup in Ann Arbor between them and Michigan State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely got to be a great game to watch. Kind of interesting.
Everybody in this is going to be watching it, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of interesting. The announcers during the Nebraska-Wisconsin game were talking a lot about how, the unexpectedly competitive, Big Ten West and all this stuff. So I feel like, some things have developed in the Big Ten West that people didn't really expect, because it's kind of a tight race in terms of who's going to come out on top there. And now the Big Ten East has also been made more interesting because both Ohio State and Michigan State, who going into the season everybody was very high on, they've both won their games, but both teams have shown signs of weakness and have struggled against lesser competition, whereas Michigan's kind of risen up from their early loss to Utah and gotten better every game, and now the national perception of them seems to be extremely positive.
Right, absolutely. Well, and again, having Utah do what it's doing in the Pac-12 isn't hurting either, because now all of a sudden people who watch that Michigan Utah game will know that, frankly, if Michigan doesn't just simply give the game away with mistakes, they played better than Utah. They had the potential to score more points than Utah, no question, but they just kept making mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then some other games, we talked a little bit about these on the Nebraska podcast because they're relevant to us. Iowa beating Illinois, but in a close game, 29-20. And similarly, Florida State beating Miami, 29-24. Both those teams were expected to win, but the opposing teams played closer than you would have expected, both teams whom we've lost to. So I guess that's good to see in terms of our perception.
Yes, but again, the thing with that is you can now at game 6 of the season start to do the math of conference, schedules, and you can start looking out into the future now that you have the data that you have, and assess the opportunities for various teams within a particular division and their chances at being able to rise to the top.
Yeah, well, and I was curious too because you know this week TCU kind of struggled against Kansas State and winning 52-45, but certainly a close game. And I know Baylor played like a nobody team and put up like 66 points against them or something. But you were talking on the previous podcast how the teams you think are the most prestigious in the country right now, playing the best football, are like the Alabamas, the Michigans, the Michigan States, the Ohio States, those teams that have that strong focus on a running game with a balanced, passing game and strong defensive play. So where do you think like the TCUs and the Baylors, who are have little in the way of defense but extremely explosive passing games on offense, where do you think they'll rank or end up in terms of that top four?
Well, see, I would say at this point it would appear to me that Baylor is the team that I would put in that category. TCU has shown me to have some weaknesses here in their early season games here. So I would be more inclined to put Baylor in that group. And then out west, I would say, Utah is that team, given that they beat Michigan and they are undefeated in the Pac-12. So I would have my eye on Utah. And then, of course, Stanford, since their loss to Northwestern, seems to have righted the ship and is doing okay. So watching them over these next couple of weeks will kind of begin to separate them maybe too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about teams that struggled again. Michigan State, struggled a bit against Rutgers, 31-24. Still a victory, but not as decisive as they might have liked.
No.
Right, which is why I think that makes this Michigan State game more interesting because Michigan's kind of on a rise, and Michigan State they were at that point when they ranked like number 2 earlier in the season, but now they've kind of fallen to like number 7, I think. So the perception of them has kind of fallen, but I don't think their defense is any less good than it was a couple weeks ago. So it'll just be interesting to see that matchup.
I would agree.
All right.
I agree.
Another big upset was USC losing to Washington, 17-12. Kind of an interesting thing with that. And apparently USC's coach is taking a leave of absence because of an unspecified illness of some sort. Yeah.
And I don't know. There's going to be speculation about what that illness is, whether because of the incidents that happened earlier in the year where he appeared intoxicated and under the influence and said some things during a booster event that were inappropriate, and he got reprimanded for it and had to be pulled from the stage. And now you have this situation, and you make an assumption that those are somehow connected. Now, he claims that he was on some kind of a prescription medicine even back then that caused the interaction with the alcohol and unexpectedly, had the impact that it had on him. But and if that were the case, then maybe whatever that prescription drug was is part of this issue now. That he already was battling some kind of an illness, and we may find out a little more, going forward.
Mm-hmm. And then another upset was Tennessee finding a way to beat Georgia, while Georgia lost their star running back in like the first game play of the drive. So that was good for Tennessee fans because I know they've had some heartbreaking losses this season already, but also heartbreaking for Georgia fans because they've now lost 2 in a row here against Alabama and now Tennessee.
Right. Kind of knocked themselves right back out of the things after people were beginning to be really high on them. So, Yep, very difficult for them.
And then, like we said, the games that were kind of pegged as like some of the top games of the day ended up being, kind of not bad games, but comfortable victories for their teams. Clemson beating Georgia Tech 43-24, LSU beating South Carolina 45-24, Alabama beating Arkansas 27-14. those kind of SEC matchups kind of went how you would have expected them to go.
Right, exactly. Not necessarily any upsets there.
Right.
But now, as we look to next week, like you said, there's actually quite a nice slate of games that are going to be playing next week. Pretty much from now on, you would expect that, because of the fact that we now have enough data on these teams to kind of know where they're headed. But from starting out west, you got Arizona State at Utah. That's the late game on ESPN, and that's going to be another barn burner there.
Yeah. Well, I got to see that Arizona State game in person against UCLA, and they definitely do have some athletes. So.
Yep, absolutely. And then you got USC at Notre Dame, and then UCLA, I think, plays, if I'm not mistaken,
Stanford.
Thursday. They play Stanford on the Thursday night game on ESPN. That's going to be a big game, UCLA at Stanford.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of big games within the top 25. Alabama plays Texas A&M. I'm crazy to think that A&M's actually ranked higher than Alabama right now.
Yeah, that won't happen.
Florida plays LSU, another top 10 matchup. And then Iowa plays Northwestern, which is a Big Ten matchup.
Right, exactly. And then you got Michigan State, Michigan, and so there's quite a few big time games there.
Ohio State playing Penn State as well. That's another interesting game in the Big Ten.
That's right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it'll be a fun day of college football again, no matter what. And that's what I find myself just trying to make sure that I'm in, even though we're struggling with as fans of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. The fact is you can't lose sight of what you love about the sport, and I try to enjoy it. Just like on Saturday, as crushed as I was after that defeat, it was nice to be watching a couple of good games that evening, in that Michigan State game, and then later the Utah Cal game was pretty good for a while too, and so it's just nice to see college football for what it is and all the passion and pageantry that it represents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and like we talked about in the past, this season has had quite a number of great upsets, and close finishes, and those kinds of things that you love to see in a college football season, just in general as a fan.
Right, absolutely. So it should be fun.
All right, so we need to do our weekly predictions here, and I think the most obvious one for us would be the Michigan State game.
Okay.
So with the fact I had to ask you before this to learn that it's being played in Ann Arbor, so it's an away game for Michigan State. That makes it tougher for me to decide, because I think if it was in Lansing, I would be pretty confident saying I thought Michigan State was going to win. But in Ann Arbor, with the streak Michigan seems to be on right now, I don't know. It's going to be a really good game, I hope.
Yes, I would agree. I actually think Michigan's playing better football right now. I mean, Michigan State has some great skill talent. They've got great wide receivers. Cook is a phenomenal quarterback, but Cook's actually pretty beat up. By the end of that Rutgers game, I mean, Cook was really gingerly walking around on his knee. He's got some knee issues, and I think that's going to affect him. There's no way that's going to be fully healed and healthy for next week's game, and I guarantee you that defense for Michigan is going to be doing everything they can to tee off on him. And the fact is that Rutgers' defense was getting to him pretty regularly, and I believe Michigan's defense is a far cry from Rutgers. So I have a feeling this is going to be another game of wow factor for Michigan. I think Michigan wins it. What's the score? Boy, I'm going to say that it'll end up being, because it's a rivalry type game, they'll keep fighting. But I'm going to say it's a 10-point victory for Michigan.
All right.
I don't know what the final, whether it'll be a big score or a small score, but it'll be a 10-point victory for Michigan.
You say 10-point victory for Michigan. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you in that Michigan wins. But I think it's going to be a more low-scoring game because, as you say, Michigan's defense is definitely a strong point of theirs right now. But then on the other side, Michigan State's defense is their strongest point. So I think seeing those two, I think those two will be the deciding factors of the game, like which defense plays better. So I'm going to say that Michigan wins it, but it's going to be a close game. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's say 24-21, Michigan wins it.
Wow. Okay, great. Awesome.
Yeah. So I definitely don't know. It might be tough with our game because the Nebraska game, I guess, starts like 2 hours, I think, after the Michigan game starts. But I'm going to try to watch that one as well because that's being from Michigan. That's definitely one of the biggest games in the state.
Absolutely, and especially this year.
Yeah, since both teams are very highly regarded, as it turns out.
Yep.
All right.
So who else? What other game? You got Florida, LSU, and USC. Notre Dame.
I was curious when I mentioned the Alabama A&M and that A&M is ranked 9th while Alabama is ranked 10th. He kind of scoffed and said that wasn't going to last. So you think Alabama's going to beat them pretty soundly?
I do. Yes, I do. I think Alabama is a way better football team than A&M. Much more complete.
Alrighty then. Then I guess the Florida LSU game is interesting. I'm trying to remember who is Florida played. Who are the big teams they've beaten this season?
Florida beat. I think Florida beat Tennessee already, and Florida also beat.
That's right.
Gosh, who was it? It was somebody else that was undefeated. Oh, Old Miss.
That's right.
Florida took Old Miss to the woodshed.
Mm-hmm. But the loss to or the victory over Tennessee, that was the really close one where like Tennessee had the chance to seal the deal and then they couldn't, right?
Right, that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I think, and LSU has a running back that is starting to build a legend for himself. That is hearkening back memories of Herschel Walker and that sort of thing. So, and it's at the Swamp, and it's at night. So all those things point to an LSU victory in my mind. But Florida's certainly playing good defense and everything like that. But I just have a feeling that LSU is going to get her done. So I'm going to say that one's going to be like a 35-28 LSU victory.
All right. I think I'm going to agree with you there. I'll go ahead and say I think it might be a bigger scoring game with those offenses going at it. So I'll go ahead and say LSU wins it. Let's say 49-35.
Okay. Wow. That is a big score. Okay, cool. Good stuff.
All right. Very good. So, this is looking like another great week of college football. Some good games in the works, and certainly some big games for Nebraska in terms of the Big Ten. Like I said, this... we weren't exactly sure where Michigan was going to be. They were kind of like a wild card at the beginning of the year if they were going to struggle early with Harbaugh or if they were going to do well. And they seem to be doing pretty well right now, so that makes that, Michigan-Ohio State matchup that comes at the end of the year all that much more exciting, especially if they end up beating Michigan State. And that's like the clincher for who gets to go to that championship game.
Right, exactly. Well, and we'll see, again, Penn State's playing better football now too, so that Penn State Ohio State matchup is going to be one we've got to watch with great interest this weekend too.
That's right. All right. Well, if you out there enjoyed this podcast, you can email us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us on Podomatic. We're footballthrowdown.podomatic.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, give us ratings and reviews, leave us a comment on the Podomatic website, check us out on the Podomatic app. All that sort of stuff. We post these up on social media, so if you're friends with either of us, you'll see it there. Thank you for listening out there, college football fans, and let's enjoy this good old God sport that we love so much.
Absolutely. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.